The Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you today by Draft. Looking for the best fantasy sports site on the planet? Sign up with Draft today. For a limited time only, our listeners will receive $3 matching their first deposit of at least $10. Use promo code DTR or visit draft.com/DTR to sign up now. Draft. Fantasy for the people. Now enjoy the show.
Caught by Brandon Cooks. Shoot your arrows. Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. Robert Wood, touchdown. LA. Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. Picked off. Marcus Peters coming off the edge. And Ryan will be wrapped up by Clay Matthews. Everett in stride. Wow.
Franklin Myers gets his hand down there.
Weddle got a hand on it. Did he pick it? He did. Racing down the sideline is Akeem Talib. Gurley for MVP. Touchdown LA. Picked off by John Johnson. Well, Dante Fowler, who is able to get to breathe. Greg Zuerlein sends the Rams to the Super Bowl. LA will play for the Lombardi.
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It is episode 265. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbone. Joining me, as always, is Alexis Kraft. And we are a little bit late, but we are off a win. The Rams did force a win in the NFC West division, a much-needed win against an NFC West rival in the Seattle Seahawks, 28-12. I thought that you and we both pretty much nailed it. I think you said, the Rams were going to win, and I had them winning as well. I had them winning 30-17, and they weren't, completely far off from that. Credit to, Jared Goff for playing another, good game back to back, despite the two turnovers. Todd Gurley running the football, Sean McVay allowing Todd Gurley to run the football. The consistency out of the wide receiver, Robert Woods, consistency out of tight end Tyler Higbee, and then, of course, the defense. I think all of that was really important to get this win. Before we dive into it, if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts, whether it be iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, wherever. Just be sure to do that. So, Alexis, I kind of threw a lot at you there. But for real, though, coming off this win, the Rams set 8-5. How are you feeling about this before we get into detailing all the game?
After watching, the game against the Seahawks, you can't help but feel optimistic. The Seahawks are a good team, and the Rams went out there and they won, and they didn't only win, they won by a lot, and they dominated the game. Now, granted, some people have said, well, the Seahawks looked off. It doesn't matter, guys. A win is a win, and we beat a really good team. Like I said last episode, the Seahawks, in my opinion, are the second hardest team that we've had to play all season, Baltimore being number one. I do think overall the Seattle Seahawks are a tougher team than the 49ers. It's just my opinion. So I think the fact that we were able to get the win on Sunday Night Football is huge for this team. I think that obviously a lot has to happen the rest of the season in order for the Rams to secure a playoff spot. It involves us. We just basically need to keep winning and hope that other teams lose. And I don't have it in front of me right now to know specifics, but basically, long story short is, guys, the Rams need to win the rest of the season. Point blank, they got to win. And I think that morale, team morale and confidence obviously has to be exceedingly high after beating the Seahawks. There's a lot of great takeaways from the game. Jake, you mentioned Jared Goff. That's huge. For one, he finally has protection. We got to give credit to the offensive line. You know what, guys, I'm biting the bullet on Bobby Evans because, listen, I get that it's only been a couple games, but he has played phenomenal. And he's a guy who, Jake and I, not that we didn't think he was talented, but we just thought by no means was he ready to play yet. To me, he was somebody who was very developmental, who, probably had a lot of potential, but somebody who I didn't think should be starting at all this year. And he has done well, as has David Edwards, which is kind of a different story because Jake and I were really high on David Edwards since before the draft. So, it's been really nice to see this offensive line turn around and see that Jared Goff is kind of getting back into the swing of things when he has this protection. And by no means was he perfect. I mean, there's still, some things that Jared Goff does that are question marks and need to be addressed. But overall, you can see that his momentum is picking up. His confidence is getting better. He doesn't look as lost out there. So that's really encouraging to see. And Jake, I'll let you start off with this, but I think our defense as well really picked up against the Seahawks because, our defense has kind of always been, even when our offense was bad. I mean, last year was pretty much our offense, but before that, our defense was kind of our staple. And then they kind of fell off a little bit this year, but it seems that they're finally starting to get in the swing of things.
Yeah, I think starting from the top, I mean, I thought, Jared played a pretty good game. 2 interceptions, one being, you could have made the argument, Brandon Cooks ran the route incorrectly, or, rather Jared Goff didn't throw more inside and try to go over the top and grab it, grab the touchdown there. But, and then of course, the miscommunication with Robert Woods, but I thought he looked comfortable, and that kind of falls in line with the way the offensive line's playing. But it's a combination of things. It's not just the offensive line; it's the receivers, creating separation, which you're not seeing around the league. You're not seeing that with Green Bay, and I think you've seen Aaron Rodgers struggle because of it. You're not seeing it consistently for Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. I don't think you're seeing it consistently in New England for Tom Brady. I think he's struggling because of it. So, it's really big that you have these receivers just creating, loads of separation. It allows Jared Goff to deliver a ball with accuracy on the money. And when you create a lot of separation like the way Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods do, just paired with the athleticism and the understanding and just the field vision that they have, they're able to make plays after the catch. So it's pretty big, and obviously they did that in this game. On top of that, Tyler Higbee, his ascension, we pretty much saw Tyler Higbee is not a one-game wonder. Tyler Higbee is growing into his role. I think, like I said on the Facebook Live, for those of you who tuned into that, it's going to come off as rude or not nice or something, but Gerald Everett got hurt because, Gerald Everett's not a blocking tight end. He had poor form, he had poor technique, and he put himself in a really bad position and ended up hurting his knee. That is Gerald Everett's career in a nutshell. Guy can't block. He's behind the 8 ball. He's somebody that flashes on occasion. He's he's helped, win a football game before, with the game-winning touchdown pass against the Chiefs last year. But, Gerald is all about projection and potential, and you use those words upside. But Gerald is not consistent, and he is not, what Tyler Higbee is right now, reliable. And I think, whether it's fair or not for me to say when he's out, I don't really care. I think, the tight end position's tough. You've seen it. It's hard. TJ Hawkinson started off the year, 8th overall pick in the draft, started off the year with 100-yard plus reception game or, receiving yard game. And then he really didn't do much the whole year. Whereas Noah Fant, who you liked a lot, Alexis, same college, Iowa, he really struggled early on, couldn't really get even in on the field for the Broncos. And now all of a sudden he's closing out the year to be the 15th all-time receiver, for a rookie tight end, around the league history. So it kind of goes to show you the tight end position is very difficult. You don't get an Evan Ingram type of season every year. And because of that, I think you can temper your expectations a little bit, but at the same time, tight ends are exciting and everything. But I think, when Gerald Everett came into the fray, I think people forgot just how good Tyler Higbee really was coming out of Western Kentucky, and that this is somebody that, from the time he was in training camp, people were dubbing as Baby Gronk. So this shouldn't be any bit of a shock. That he's finally coming into his own. And of course, with all the mouths to feed and everything in the Rams offense, it's kind of hard to get him involved, but it's been a lot easier as of late. And then you talk about the defense and, what can you say? I mean, they've really buckled down after their, drubbing on Monday Night Football against the Ravens. And, I just think the way they were able to defend Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray back-to-back games kind of shows you, if they were to play Lamar Jackson again, that Ravens offense again, it would be very interesting because it almost seemed like if they stuck with this game plan, they might have been able to not stop the Ravens because you're never going to shut them down, but contain them. Their game plan the last 2 weeks has been awesome. And, I think just it's a credit to, how they're selling out to stop the run. Guys are getting pressure up the middle. You now have Aaron Donald, getting involved. He has 11 sacks. Dante Fowler, of course, Clay Matthews is healthy. And then you have guys like Ebukam, who, is slowly but surely having a solid year as a rotational pass rusher, as well as Obadiah Okoronkwo. And then, of course, the play that you're getting out of, Michael Brockers, in the middle. That's not including the linebackers, especially the way Corey Littleton's playing. And then the corners, Jalen Ramsey, Troy Hill, and Nickel Roby-Coleman, as well as the safety play. So, I think the Rams are really peaking at the right time. And I know people would say it's too late and everything, but I think this game was huge for the Rams to not only they gained their confidence last week. This kind of reaffirmed that the Rams are indeed for real, and they still have 3 games to win, but there's no reason why that game against, obviously I think they should beat Dallas, but there's no reason why the game against the 49ers shouldn't at least be a close one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close one as well. Listen, I mean, there's no denying that the 49ers have played well this season, and you could always go into detail about, reasons that teams play well. But at the end of the day, listen, the 49ers have the record that they have. We have the record that we have. It's going to be an important game for us. We need to win it. And I think that we can win it. I think the game against the Seahawks, if anything, can show what we can do. The issue with this Rams team this season has been consistency. Well, I should say one of them, but consistency is very important, and it's something that we lacked. And we've kind of seen momentum in the past couple games start to swing our way, and we've done our job. We've been consistent. I think that if they can carry that going into the rest of the season, and closing out the season, I think that we can potentially put ourselves in a very good spot. I think you made a lot of good points. I think something, watching this game is Todd Gurley, because that's also something that's kind of dominated the headlines this whole season is why have, at least to start the season, why weren't we using Todd Gurley? Now we're finally using him. And, I don't understand people who say that Todd Gurley no longer looks like his old self. I mean, he might not be his old self, but he's a pretty damn good running back, guys. I mean, if it were up to me, we would use him double what we even used him against the Seahawks. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that the Rams are finally starting to see that if they want to win games, they got to run the football?
Oh, of course. And I think really the question is not, are the Rams finally, realizing that if they want to win games, they have to run the football. I think the question is, was this all a plan? Was this, you and I kind of alluded to this on an episode a while ago where, is Sean McVay holding back Todd Gurley for the latter portion of the year? As long as the Rams make the playoffs, it's actually not really it's kind of a no harm, no foul type of play, because if you are able to make the playoffs and you only use Todd Gurley, 16 carries a game until the last 3 games where, you give it over 20, then he's going to be relatively fresh to start the postseason. So if that was their plan, then it's very interesting. And I think that's definitely a possibility. I know someone would stop me and say, well, if that was their plan, then were they cool with losing those games? And I would say that they probably if that was their plan, then they were probably going to have Jared Goff, or at least believed in Jared Goff to kind of carry the offense, or at least, manage the offense. And I don't think anybody could have foreseen the way he struggled this year. Now, albeit he's played really well the last 2 games, but he has to keep that up. I think that the only reason that I'm a little skeptical about the plan, I do believe actually, like if I were to decide whether or not that was their plan all along, I would go with yes. But the thing that worries me the most is the fact that they moved away from, I thought, something that worked so well at the beginning of the year. They had Todd Gurley run the ball, I believe, 16 times, and they had Malcolm Brown run the ball 11 times in the first game of the year against the Panthers. And it worked out because they were able to not only limit Todd Gurley's carries and get, a huge bang for his buck, because he almost went over 100 yards in those 16 carries. But on top of that, Malcolm Brown was also, gashing that defense on the ground. And so at the same time, when you combine those, you're now at 26 carries, and that's a pretty managed game. Anytime you run the ball over 25 times, you've done a nice job of balancing your game plan most of the time. Maybe you didn't get a chance to hold the ball very often, and you ended up running it 25 times and you threw it, 15. But most of the time, if you run over 25 times, then you probably have around 25 passes. And for that reason, that's a really balanced game plan. That's really where I wanted the Rams to stick with. So I really like the way that they game planned against the Panthers. But I say that, and, unfortunately, until the Bears game, they didn't have any bit of, a Todd Gurley explosion or a Todd Gurley, like, let's go out there and use number 30 and run the ball and take over a game. Until that Bears game, in between, week 1 and the Bears game, he had 2 games where he had over 16 carries or more. I mean, that's just insane to me. But it also kind of reaffirms the idea that it probably was the plan all along. Keep in mind, last year he got hurt in December, admitted to a week 1 injury that was really bad that he played through. The Rams also lost Malcolm Brown for the year, and they had Justin Davis and, of course, John Kelly. They weren't, satisfied with them, at least not at that time, so they went out and signed C.J. Anderson. I think that right now they like that, obviously. That definitely worked last year. But I think they just really want Todd Gurley to be healthy because they know the type of damage that he can do to any defense, and the fact that he's basically the engine of the offense. So I like it if that was indeed their plan. And I don't see them stopping, running the football with Todd Gurley the rest of the way.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely something to keep your eye on, and I'm just excited to see that it appears, at least for now, that he's becoming more and more part of the Rams game plan, as I think he should be. I think another thing that, that's just been so interesting about this offense is it seems like McVay was under a lot of criticism at the beginning of the year, and I think rightfully so, because at least in my opinion, I don't think that he handled the first half of the season, really the first maybe 3/4 of the season, up until the last couple games. I was not a fan of, the way that McVay handled the Rams at all. And it does seem that for whatever reason, he's starting to kind of get back into his rhythm again. And maybe it's not McVay, maybe it's, Goff also getting back into his rhythm, the offensive line, everybody flowing together. But it does seem that he is also starting to get his confidence back as well, which is something that I'm really excited to see, because he's also somebody that I think took a lot of heat. And again, like I said, rightfully so, at the beginning of the season, because he just really lacked creativity. Also the whole, not running the ball thing. It just seemed like he was really lost and didn't know what to do. And he just seems very refreshed and seems to kind of have that edge to him again, and is willing to be creative and try new things. And that's something that, as Rams fans, I think we're excited to see as well. But I just think overall, watching the Seahawks game, I think it's something the Rams needed, but I also think it's something that us Rams fans really needed as well, because, we're on Twitter and we're, have all of our, Rams fans, friends and all that good stuff. And it just seemed like, all of us were super confused and really just, disheartened with the way that the team had been playing. And again, rightfully so. We think we had every right to feel that way. But it's always exciting, when your team starts to pick it up and they seem to, begin to correct the errors that they were making all season, because it shows that, they were aware of the problem and they actively have tried to fix it. So I do think it's a really fun time right now if you're a Rams fan. And again, the whole playoff picture, largely depends on us, but, it also largely depends on other teams and how that shakes out. So like I said earlier, all that we can do and hope for is to win games. I mean, if we don't win games, that's probably it for us. So if you guys, obviously I'm sure you watch every game, just hope for the win. Any win is a win. It doesn't have to be a win by 50 points. We just got to win the games. We got to, do our job, play well. And I think that if the Rams do what they've been doing, that's a reality for us.
Yeah, of course. And, I got to say, I think as much as I would love for the Rams to win out, I think really this Sunday becomes very interesting because as long as the Rams take care of business against a team that they should beat in Dallas, who is seemingly falling apart, the Chargers, all they have to do is beat the Vikings. If the Chargers beat the Vikings this weekend, here's the crazy thing. Okay, if the Chargers beat the Vikings this weekend, the Rams beat the Cowboys, and say the Rams lose, to the 49ers, and, the Packers beat the Vikings, the Rams, all they have to do is beat Arizona in week 17, and they get in at 10-6. Now, here's even more of an interesting thing. The Bears are playing the Packers. The Bears are fighting for something here. They don't have a great chance of making the playoffs. Technically, they are 2 games back from the Rams, who are a game back from the Vikings. But they still have a shot. And because of that, they're going to go, for it. They're going to try and take down, Green Bay. And I think, if Green Bay and Minnesota both lose, then the Rams just have to win the 2 of the next 3. Isn't that crazy to think about that? If the Green Bay and the Vikings lose, the Rams just have to win 2 of the next 3 and they're in. So they have to beat either Dallas, the 49ers, or Arizona. They just have to win 2 out of those 3. And if they win against the 49ers, things could get interesting depending on how, the 49ers play the next 3 weeks as well. Because if they lose to the Rams and they lose to the Seahawks and they lose, this weekend to the Falcons, the 49ers are out of the playoffs. So it's still, play to be decided. It's not likely that the 49ers would miss the playoffs. It sounds crazy after the way they played against the Saints. But it's definitely something that, is mathematically possible. But I just want to say, the Rams, they have to win out and they just need the Vikings to lose 1 game. And basically, if the Vikings lose this weekend and the Packers lose this weekend, it puts the Rams in a really good position.
Yeah, like I said, there's kind of, a lot of scenarios that could happen. I think for someone like me who just thinking about all of it just makes me anxious as hell. I'm like, you know what? We just got to win. I think, if the Rams just keep winning, that's all that they can control and our team can control. So just keep winning, keep doing your job, build upon the success that we've been having the past couple of weeks, and, maybe pay attention to the other team scores as well and see what they're doing. But, it's going to be an interesting and kind of wild ride to close the season out, and we can only hope that it ends in our favor.
Yeah, that's, again, that's really all you can hope for as a fan. But just looking at this game from like an analytical perspective, who do you think stood out the most for you in the Rams and Seahawks game, on the Rams side of the football? Because I know there's multiple players. We talked about the way Taylor Rapp has come on in recent weeks. And he's one of the best safeties over the last 3 weeks in the league, according to PFF. So, he's playing lights out. Corey Littleton is playing lights out. Aaron Donald, Dante Fowler. I mean, I think he had 2 sacks in this one. So, and that's just the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, you have Woods playing at a high level, Higbee, Gurley, Goff, offensive line. But who would you say?
I think in regards to just overall play that game, I'm going to probably say Tyler Higbee. And the reason that I'm saying Tyler Higbee is because I think that if anybody, there's a lot of players this season who have a lot to prove, but Tyler Higbee was one of them. And you could say, well, why? He already got paid. But, he had to prove why he got paid. A lot of people were not happy with that decision, and a lot of people questioned it. So I think for Tyler, this season was kind of, he needed to prove why he earned that. And I think that he's, at least the past couple games done that. So, watching the game, I was really happy to see how he played, and I just thought that he kind of made a statement.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I'll go different here. I'll say Troy Hill, who's been the scapegoat of the Rams community. Not me though. I've actually been a big fan of Troy Hill. I've always liked Troy Hill, and I think it's really cool that he actually, Alexis, and you probably know this already, but he followed the Rams from St. Louis. So it's pretty cool to see. There's not a ton of St. Louis Rams around, but he's still one of them, and he's really making a name for himself. And shout out to the Rams for signing this guy to a 2-year deal before the season started, because it's looking like a damn bargain right now.
Yeah, he, especially, I just think, again, that's a guy who a lot of people have been critical of. And for him to make the play that he did at the end of the game, he's another guy who I think kind of needed to make a statement and prove why he deserved that starting role in the Rams. And I think he did that. So that was obviously, really exciting to see.
Oh yeah, of course. 100%. And I think it was really, really nice to see the Rams use a lot of jet motion and go back to what made them just such a great offense. You know what I mean? I think just all the different inside handoffs to wide receivers, and the jet motions that allow linebackers or allow Todd Gurley maybe an extra second or two. For a linebacker to kind of lean one way and have him hit them in the mouth going the other way. It's something, again, that I just don't think people notice how big of a deal it is. Because I know people are like, oh, jet motion, jet sweeps. Oh my God, Tavon Austin. And it's like, no, you have to understand, even when they had Tavon Austin, that stuff did its job. Because as a defender, you still have to you have to be honest. You have to, give that an opportunity to potentially, be a thing. Because if they go that way and you don't react at all, they're going to gash you. It's one of those things where you're put in a rough position. So you have to have a solid game plan when a team is running that many jet motions in a game. And a team like the Rams that can get tricky very quickly. I mean, we saw Cooper Kupp throw his first pass, and I mean, he had the touchdown. It was not a good pass, but he had the touchdown and kind of missed it on there. But it's really interesting though to see them, kind of dig into their bag of tricks and go back to kind of how it was in 2017 and 18. And I think the really important thing is, polar opposite to last year. During this time where Jared Goff seemed to be falling off a cliff in far as his production, it seems like he's getting better at the right time. On top of the fact that Todd Gurley is he's going to be fresh for the playoffs. He hasn't really been used, and now I keep saying this, and I know 49ers fans are laughing and such, and other people are, but the Rams couldn't have peaked at a better time because it's survival of the fittest with the NFL. Right now, the 49ers just had a costly win. And what I mean by that is they won 48-46, I believe, against the Saints, at the Superdome. But here's the thing. They lost Dee Ford. Richard Sherman got hurt. They lost Weston Richburg for the year. Like those injuries are costly this late in the season. We saw with the Rams, they were able to stay healthy, relatively healthy last year, and it really paid off. And one thing that I want to point out is that last year the Rams had reinforcements come in, because you were talking about Mark Barron coming back and Aqib Talib coming back. It just seemed like they were getting the whole band back together before the end of the season. The only one they didn't have is Cooper Kupp. So, right now the Rams are peaking at the right time. I'd say the similar team in the AFC that's doing the same thing, the Tennessee Titans. I don't know if you've been watching around the league. You probably have, but I mean, Ryan Tannehill, he's coming into his own. The Tennessee and LA right now, they seem like the two scariest teams, like teams where if I'm a Vikings fan, I'm a Packers fan, Dallas fan, any of the playoff teams fans, really, I don't want to play against the Rams, and I don't want to play against the Titans. Because what I don't think is fair is how everyone's assuming the Rams are going to be a one and done if they make the playoffs. And I've seen a lot of that. What if, and let me just say this, what if the Rams have that experience? They have a coach that's already had the experience. They've been in the Super Bowl. They have a team that's just as good as probably the next team in the NFC. They've just played poorly and inconsistently this year. But what if maybe, just maybe, a team that's already been there, already experienced that, already has the talent, is potentially the New England Patriots in the NFC, where, yes, okay, they have a 6th seed or they have a 5th seed, but they're not a team you want to play. And like the Patriots, okay, the Patriots may not be hosting a playoff game in Foxborough by the end of the season. The way they've lost 2 games, they lose to Buffalo. Kansas City could jump them. But let me tell you this: do you want to play Bill Belichick and the Patriots at all in the playoffs? You don't. So I know it's not like the same thing because the Rams and Patriots are different, but I will say, just, you can't discount when you get to that level. Jared Goff has already been there, done that. Obviously, their goal is to win a Super Bowl, but they've already gone through the gauntlet of the NFC playoffs. They've gotten to the end game and they lost. So, I think it's very important for people to realize it's all about making it. It does not matter about seeding. The Rams can beat anybody. They can also lose to anybody. And, the way they're playing right now, albeit it was against 2 division opponents, so they know, more about them than the next team. But the way they're playing right now over the last 2 games, or if you want to say 3 out of the last 4, because they have 3 wins out of the last 4 games, if we're talking about, even the Bears game, but the way they're playing is very interesting, and it's going to scare some teams. I really believe so, because right now, Alexis, could you tell me there's anybody in the NFC that 100% would be the favorite against the Rams, and you would have no confidence in them beating on the road?
No.
There's not one, right? I mean, I've been an advocate for the NFC not being that good. I think that you could even make an argument when the Rams are fully healthy, they're still the best team in the NFC, and they have just, struggled to find themselves this year. And they've dealt with, personnel changes and offensive line issues. They lost their left guard, their center, their right tackle, and somehow their offensive line got better. They're using 2 rookies. They're using a starter from last year that's starting in a completely different spot. They're using a guy that they basically traded for at the deadline that barely got any play with the Cleveland Browns. I mean, this is all happening. And while this is happening, you have guys like Taylor Rapp that you drafted in the draft also, making an impact and becoming a big time player. Obviously, Aaron Donald is really, he's going to start taking off. Fowler, just the pressure is there. The secondary is getting better. And, now Tyler Higbee is the X factor of the offense, which is something that I don't think that we saw necessarily coming, or at least going to happen at this point in the season. So again, I say right now, I don't think that there's a team in the NFC that I would be scared of the Rams playing. The Rams can go to Lambeau and they can beat the Packers. Heck, the Redskins with a rookie quarterback in Dwayne Haskins, who really didn't play all that well the entire game, almost came back and won the game. They lost 20-15. The Vikings, they have not been a team that has scared me, because the Vikings this year, if they play a team with a winning record, they don't win. That is just the way that the season's gone for them. Seattle, they, for whatever reason, they're not as good at home. The Rams, outplayed them at home and lost, and then they dominated them when they were at home. So that there. The 49ers, that game, they caught the Rams at the best time for them, the worst time for the Rams. I think they're catching them at a bad time, upcoming. So, we'll see about that. But then it's like the Saints, the Rams. I mean, we saw the Rams beat the Saints, whether or not it was, Drew Brees was hurt or Drew Brees threw an interception before he came out of that game. Let's keep in mind. And, the Rams seemed to outplay them from start to finish. I mean, what does that leave? Dallas, who they play this weekend. So we'll see about Dallas. And that's really it. I mean, it's the Bears I don't think the Bears make it. And if they play the Eagles, I think they feast on Carson Wentz. So again, I don't think any NFC team scares me. I think, by virtue, you would have to be scared of the AFC because you couldn't beat Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I think, next time around it'd be a close game, but I don't think that you can just assume that the Rams would win that game. And then I think the Patriots, just because of the fact that they lost to them in the Super Bowl. But aside from that, I mean, you beat the Chiefs last year without Cooper Kupp. I mean, the Titans are scary, but you're scary. So it's kind of like, I feel like, that would be kind of a stalemate. And I don't think the Steelers would want to play the Rams again. So, I just, that's kind of where I'm at right now. The only teams that scare me aren't in the NFC.
Yeah, I agree. I've kind of followed the same train of thought this entire season that the AFC, to me, I just think that overall, if you had to ask me who the best team in football is right now, it'd be the Ravens. I don't know. I think the NFC is kind of up for grabs because I think you'd ask a lot of people and they would be like, oh, the 49ers just because of their record. But if you've been watching the 49ers, I don't think that they're a team that is just going to steamroll anybody and everybody. I think that really if the Rams can just play the way they've been playing, I think they'll be in a good spot.
Agreed. Definitely agreed. The Rams just have to continue doing their thing. And obviously they need some teams around them to lose. It'd be great if Green Bay and Minnesota lost this weekend, would add some flexibility. But I want the Rams to go 11-5. I don't want this, let's lose to the 49ers, it's okay. I want the Rams to go 11-5, and I want them to have a shot at getting the 5th seed, because I don't think they can win the division at this point in time unless Seattle just completely collapses, which we're not going to rule out because we've seen losses cripple teams. But, right now, the best they can do is the 5th seed, and I'd love if the Rams got the 5th seed for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's definitely going to be an exciting few weeks, and it's something to, not only keep an eye on the Rams, but, maybe kind of keep one eye on other teams as well.
Yeah, exactly. It should be a fun weekend. We'll talk more in depth. We'll be recording that later on in the week. We'll have your preview for Rams Cowboys. Should be an interesting one, obviously, in Dallas. So the last time the Rams went to Dallas, Greg Zuerlein kicked 7 field goals and the Rams won the game. But we'll see this time around. But for Jake Ellenbone, she's Alexis Kraft. This has been the Downtown Rams podcast. It's been episode 265, and we'll be back later on the week. Later, guys.